The Caribbean, with its sun-kissed shores and turquoise waters, is often seen as a paradise today. But centuries ago, it was a battleground of empires, a melting pot of cultures, and one of the most lucrative trade centers in the world. How did a collection of islands, scattered across the sea, become one of the most sought-after trading hubs in history? The answer lies in a mix of geography, resources, and European ambition. Let's dive into the fascinating story of how the Caribbean became the crossroads of global trade. Geography, the Caribbean's strategic advantage. The Caribbean's biggest asset was its location. Situated between North and South America, the islands were like stepping stones across the Atlantic. For European explorers and merchants, the Caribbean was the perfect stopover between the Old World and the New. It was close to major trade routes connecting Europe, Africa, and the Americas. Ships sailing to or from South America often passed through the Caribbean. The warm waters and predictable winds, like the trade winds, made sailing easier for merchants. This made the Caribbean an ideal center for trade, shipping, and naval power. The Age of Exploration. The Spanish arrive. In 1492, Christopher Columbus set foot in the Caribbean, unknowingly opening the door to European colonization. The Spanish were the first to claim these lands, quickly recognizing their potential. The Caribbean islands became the first European colonies in the Americas. The Spanish used the region as a staging ground for their expeditions to the mainland. They soon discovered gold and silver, particularly in places like Hispaniola, now Haiti, and the Dominican Republic and Cuba. By the early 1500s, ships loaded with gold and silver from the Americas passed through the Caribbean on their way to Spain. These shipments made the region incredibly wealthy, but also a target for rival European powers and pirates. The sugar boom, the birth of the plantation economy. By the 1600s, gold and silver were no longer the Caribbean's main attractions. Instead, a new commodity became more valuable than gold: sugar. The Caribbean's hot climate and fertile soil made it perfect for growing sugarcane. European demand for sugar skyrocketed, making it one of the most profitable crops in history. The plantation system was introduced, with large estates dedicated to sugar production. But sugar plantations needed cheap labor, and this led to one of the darkest chapters in Caribbean history: the transatlantic slave trade. The slave trade, a tragic foundation of Caribbean wealth. With the sugar industry booming, European colonists needed millions of workers to maintain the plantations. This led to the mass importation of enslaved Africans. European traders established the transatlantic slave trade, forcibly bringing Africans to the Caribbean. Enslaved people were forced to work in brutal conditions on sugar, coffee, and tobacco plantations. The Caribbean became a key part of the triangular trade. Ships from Europe carried weapons and goods to Africa. African slaves were transported across the Atlantic, the Middle Passage, to work in the Caribbean. Sugar, rum, and other goods were sent back to Europe, completing the cycle. By the 1700s, the Caribbean was the heart of the global sugar industry, but at a terrible human cost. A battleground for European powers. With so much wealth flowing from the Caribbean, it wasn't long before European empires began fighting over it. Spain, France, England, the Netherlands, and Portugal all wanted control over the region. Major islands, like Jamaica, Haiti, Cuba, and Barbados, changed hands multiple times through wars and treaties. Fortresses, naval bases, and massive fleets of warships were stationed in the Caribbean to protect trade routes. The Spanish treasure fleet, which transported gold and silver, was frequently targeted by enemy ships and pirates. Wars like the Anglo-Spanish War, the 9 Years' War, and the War of Jenkins' Ear were fought largely over control of Caribbean trade. Pirates and privateers, the unofficial players. With so much treasure moving through the Caribbean, it became a pirate's paradise. Pirates and privateers attacked merchant ships and Spanish treasure fleets. Infamous pirates like Blackbeard, Henry Morgan, and Calico Jack built their reputations in the Caribbean. Some pirates were actually hired by European governments as privateers, legalized pirates who attacked enemy ships. Port cities like Port Royal, Jamaica and Nassau, Bahamas became pirate strongholds, fueling the legend of the Caribbean as a lawless frontier. The Caribbean's influence on global trade. By the 18th century, the Caribbean had transformed into a major economic powerhouse. Sugar exports from the Caribbean fed the massive demand in Europe. Rum, made from Caribbean sugar, became one of the most popular alcoholic drinks worldwide. The region's ports such as Havana, Kingston, and Santo Domingo became centers of global commerce. European cities like London, Amsterdam, and Bordeaux thrived because of Caribbean trade, and the wealth generated from the region helped fund the Industrial Revolution in Europe. The end of colonial domination and the rise of independent nations. By the 19th century, the Caribbean's role in global trade began to change. The abolition of slavery in the early 1800s weakened the plantation economy. Many Caribbean nations fought for and gained independence from European rule. Trade patterns shifted as new industries and economies developed. Despite these changes, the Caribbean remained an important trading region, especially in modern industries like tourism, oil, and financial services. The Caribbean's lasting legacy. From a gold-laden paradise to the center of the sugar empire, the Caribbean played a critical role in shaping world history. Its strategic location, abundant resources, and connection to global trade routes made it one of the most valuable regions in history. Even today, its influence can be seen in the food, music, culture, and economies of the world. The Caribbean is not just a tourist destination, it's a region that once shaped the fate of empires. What do you think was the most important factor in the Caribbean's rise as a trade hub? Let us know in the comments. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more incredible stories from history.